What's going on, everybody? It is early in the morning here on Saturday, April 26, 2025, and it's the last day of the NFL draft. I'm David Delano, and here to talk about why Shedeur Sanders was not drafted in the first two rounds of the NFL draft. And didn't know if I should wear this or my Browns jersey for this, but I feel like there's less people out here that have one of these. Definitely not a Shedeur hater, definitely not a Coach Prime hater, but I want to go ahead and talk about why he slipped to the why he's going to slip to day 3 of the draft. I've been getting so many calls and text messages about this from people who don't, even for people who don't follow football like that. I've been seeing a lot of different things going on. Even like politically, is it racism? Do they just not want to see a confident young black man succeed? And one thing that I like to try to do always with these with sports, even though sports are fun, there's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion in it. I like to take the emotion out of it, and I want to explain why I think Shedeur Sanders has fallen to the third day, because the facts are he was not drafted on day 1 or day 2. A lot of people are upset about that. Most people are shocked about it because I didn't see anyone predicting it. But regardless of how you feel about it, the facts are he has not yet been drafted. So I'm going to talk about why I think that happened. I'm just putting that disclaimer out there. I'm not a hater, and I think a lot of times, anytime someone has said anything negative about Shedeur or Coach Prime, they've been labeled as a hater. But only way that I can talk about this, peel back all the feelings aside. Some of the things in this might sound negative, but we're talking about why he's fallen so far. So there's obviously a lot of negative things that, right or wrong, that these NFL owners, GMs, coaches are seeing. So first of all, let's talk about why I think one of the reasons, of course, the obvious reason is Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. And one thing that I want to point out, just speaking from facts here and also speaking as a Browns fan, we get into depth on why I don't think that the Browns picked Shedeur, and I'm a little surprised that nobody else has. First of all, we'll start with Coach Prime is on record. This is he said this different times on national platforms that he possibly would pull an Eli, that he would not let his son go to a team if he didn't feel like it was the right situation. Could put clips in the description of different times that he said that. They've asked him before, what if you're going to let your son? And he basically has implied that his son will do what he says. So that's one thing there. And by saying that, it pulls away from, and I'm saying this as someone with 3 sons. Still, father, your son, you don't always have the same views. So those comments also make it sound like Shedeur is not his own man. And when I look at that as a Cleveland Browns fan, let's just be honest. If you say that there's certain teams that you won't let your son go to, because of the way franchises are, you're talking about the Browns. So Tennessee Titans had the first pick, took Cam Ward. So you're looking at, other possible teams. When you have comments like that, that could take teams like the Browns saying, okay, he doesn't really want to be there. I saw an analogy of, you see why teams would stay away from him. It's like getting that really, really, really good-looking woman that's used to dating guys who made way more money than you, that's just out of your league. She's always, or she thinks that she's on another level, to where she's always got one foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, always looking over your back. So that's one thing. I can see why the Browns did not select him for that reason. And even it really did surprise me, though, at the end of the third round, with Dillon Gabriel being there, the Browns took Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders. But I also understand it from the sense of, I'm going to say this for the record, I don't think Gabriel's better than Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's going to have a better career than Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to have a better career. I think that Shedeur Sanders, for the record, is a better quarterback than Tyler Shuck, who the New Orleans Saints took in the second round. But I think that the reason that the Browns did that, obviously, the Cleveland Browns did not want any parts of Shedeur Sanders. Maybe, I don't know what happened with this, but maybe Deion told him that he wouldn't go there. Maybe Shedeur during the interviews didn't sound too excited about going to Cleveland. And just the fact of the matter is, he has the right to do it, but when you're coming from another reason, I mean, Shedeur's already got money. Shedeur's already rich. I mean, you've got, talking about the amount of money that the watches and the necklaces cost. And, it shouldn't matter, but I think that it did matter to a lot of different teams. And from the Browns' perspective, I mean, we've already got one icy quarterback that, was not winning. They don't know if they wanted to, right or wrong, bring that in. I don't know if they wanted the distraction. And I think that when you're an organization like the Cleveland Browns that has been a laughingstock for so long, if Shedeur came in and didn't succeed, it's going to be blamed on the Browns organization. Cleveland, I think right now they don't want people whose names are bigger than the organization. When Odell Beckham Jr. came over, you could blame who you want to blame. I mean, it was a distraction. This Deshaun Watson situation's become a distraction with a lot of people's, futures on the line. I don't think that they wanted that distraction, and I don't think that they wanted him to be a Cleveland Brown. Now, obviously, this goes much deeper than the Cleveland Browns because nobody else has taken Shedeur Sanders. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Skylar Thompson, Mason Rudolph. I did double check. Those are their quarterbacks. New Orleans Saints. I mean, they took Tyler Shuck. Seattle Seahawks, Sean Alexander, family call, my nephew, quarterback, Jalen Milroe. The Jets need a quarterback. There's teams out there that definitely could use the service of Shedeur Sanders. And they've passed on him. So obviously it's much bigger than that. And I think that, I do definitely think that it is a lot of teams. When you look at the media now, a lot of people with ties to the league, ties to, Coach Prime. I don't think anyone really a lot of people don't really want to speak down. And you've gotten that notion a lot of times on shows where, like First Take, they'll make it sound like everybody loves Deion Sanders, and there's nobody that everybody loves. Now, what's surprising me though is how many of these GMs and things like that are rubbed the wrong way by him. And I say that, but with Shedeur wasn't drafted in the first round, I could see the reasonings for that. But once the second and third, once Shuck goes off the board, Milroe, Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel, that was definitely sending a message there. I thought personally that his draft party, I hate to say this, man, about the kid, and sometimes you're thinking things and you don't want to say them. They don't sound good, may not sound politically correct, but the truth of the matter is if you're thinking it, somebody else is thinking it. I thought that his draft party looked a little cringe. I know was performing a song, he's got his brand up and all of that, and that's fine. But I think with the draft, to me, it just sent a little bit of the message. I think it just kind of sent the message that's scaring a little bit of teams that it's going to be all about him and his brand. Coming in, being forced to play him right away is not something that they wanted to do. And honestly, I mean, Deion Sanders has coached him since he was a little kid, I believe, since he started playing football. So how's he going to respond without his father coaching him? And if he struggles, is Deion going to take your job next year and tell him I know how to coach my boy? So I think all of those are some reasons there. I do think, though, I mean, it's as we're looking at day 3, you're looking at the Jets, looking at the Steelers, looking at the Raiders. I think that he goes to one of those teams. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers would be a great fit for him. Probably have a strong career and torture the Cleveland Browns if he goes there. But ultimately, I think that the reasons is the the possible distractions. Teams just don't want. Deion did a lot of different things, but he was such a generational talent at a different time. Shedeur is talented, but he's also a quarterback. You got to be a leader of men. You got to, and every little thing is going to be scrutinized with that. And I think with that, some of the ice and just just a lot of different things. I mean, when people talk about the entitlement, um, I can understand that argument a little bit. I mean, he did not participate in the combine. He kind of carried himself throughout the situation like he was going to be a top 5 pick, and that was not the case. Colorado retiring his jersey so quick. That's quick to retire a jersey. And in my first reaction, I was like, well, Colorado's retiring Shedeur Sanders' number. How do I feel about that? I wanted to check and see if Cordell Stewart's number's been retired yet, and it hasn't. So when I saw that, I wasn't crazy about that. And I think that that's really just a lot of what it is. Teams have some doubts about his potential, and they feel as though if he comes to the team, it's going to be so much hype to play him right away. And if they fail, they're going to get killed in the national media. Deion, all those connections throughout the league, throughout the media, are basically going to blame the franchise. And I think it's just a distraction a lot of teams didn't want to deal with. Some other things about Shedeur, because I know when they've talked about, you talk about the backward hat at the combine, you could talk about, quote unquote, how bad his interview was. But, I mean, all those things are off the field things. Now, on the field, a lot to like, but not perfect, not very mobile, doesn't really run for yardage. He didn't have a lot of protection at all. I thought that was a bit of a strength, how he responded to having such a terrible offensive line and no running game. But there were some moments, when you're drafting someone, you've got to nitpick in the fact that he's not been selected in the first 3 rounds. Teams were definitely doing that. So before the BYU game, I went on several platforms and said that I liked BYU against Colorado in that game and got killed for it. People told me a lot of different things, didn't know what I was talking about. And I think that that's one of those things, though. He didn't play well against BYU, whether it was him. It's a team game. But there were some performances out there, the Nebraska game, and even after the Nebraska game, he mentioned how many times did Raiola get touched. Kind of seemed like he was throwing his offensive line under the bus a little bit. A lot of things that he did well. Colorado definitely did pad some stats. Look, he put up great numbers. There was a little bit of stat padding. I mean, I watched the games. The Oklahoma State game. I keeping them in a little bit longer, more than some teams would. And like I said, it's nitpicking a little bit, but there's reasons outside of people just hating on him that he wasn't going to the first round. Obviously, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, I can understand that. Now, the thing is, though, Tyler Shough, now he's got some flaws in his game, too. Dylan Gabriel. So once you start to get to him not going in the 3rd round, that's why I mentioned so many of the off the field things, because I think you can make a case based off of the football for him not being a 1st round pick. But when you start talking about him not being a 2nd or not being a 3rd round pick, it's definitely a lot of off the field concerns and things that I mentioned, right or wrong. That's why I focus so much on that, because those things on the field about him, his arm strength, all of that, seeming to kind of back down from some challenges from Cam Ward at times. Those are some reasons I can see making a case for him not being picked in the first round. Like I said, it's observation, no feelings involved in this. It is what it is. He hasn't got picked in the first 3 rounds. So just trying to help you guys understand the reasons why I think those are. Feel free to let me know in the comments what reasons you think, if you agree, disagree, if you got some that you want to add. I'd love to see them. Still very, very, very surprised. I think that most of the teams that can get him, or that he would be a good fit for, are still out there. And I ultimately do think that he lands with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think if the Steelers, the Raiders, or the Jets don't take him, I think they'd be crazy not to take him. I definitely think that he should have been drafted already. But I do understand the drop. You know, when you say things like you're going to refuse for him to go certain places, you're going to pull an Eli, it isolates certain teams. He didn't want to go to Cleveland, and he's not going to Cleveland. But you know, there's only a certain amount of teams out there in the market for quarterbacks, and you know, one thing here, one thing there, it can lead you to dropping. So those are my opinions of it ultimately, and I do think I'm going to predict that he does end up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers today. So let me know what your comments are with what your thoughts are with Shedeur Sanders. These are really my just kind of my thoughts, top of the dome here at about 3 a.m. We'll see what happens. Like, subscribe, definitely would appreciate it. God bless, good luck, and really seriously, let me know your opinions on this situation. Let's have a great day.